Welcome to Meanwhile at the Museum, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes with the people, stories, and shenanigans that make Cincinnati Museum Center what it is. I'm Cody Hefner, alongside Magic Mitch, who is our audio engineer, our producer, editor.
Yeah.
Do you want any other accolades?
No, it's all good.
Okay. Or do any of those fit? Have we nailed it yet?
Yeah. No, yeah, it's all good.
Okay.
It's all good.
But we are both joined by James Burns, who is our Director of OMNIMAX Operations. We got that correct, right?
That's correct.
All right. James, how long have you been here? When did you start?
I started the museum in 1998, so that puts me at about 26 years here right now.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
So the OMNIMAX opened in 1990.
correct.
Did you start in the OMNIMAX, like working with the OMNIMAX?
Yeah, that was actually when I moved to Cincinnati. I graduated high school in 96, grew up in a small town, and when I moved to Cincinnati, yeah, that was my first job in Cincinnati, was working film projectors at the OMNIMAX Theater.
That's great. So where'd you grow up? Where's your small town?
My small town was Hillsboro, Ohio, which is about an hour and 20 minutes northeast of here, like out past Eastgate, past Mount Orb, up that way.
It's like Chillicothe area, right?
Yeah. Just shy of Chillicothe. Yeah, we're out there where near Serpent Mound is and all that stuff, whatever. So, yeah. I grew up in a small town. The small town had nothing. It had a Kmart and a Frisch's when I was growing up, and the Frisch's was like drive up like Sonic's.
Did they do the roller skates?
No, I think they would have dropped too much tartar sauce. I don't know.
When I think of Kmart, I think of ices and popcorn.
Yeah.
I can smell Kmart right now.
Yeah. Kmart does have a smell, and we had 3 Kmarts. So we kept upgrading. We're like, this Kmart doesn't smell enough like ices and popcorn. Let's get a new one.
You had 3? Did they replace each other, or were they?
Sometimes they coexisted. Yeah. So you were like, oh, which Kmart am I going to today?
I don't think my Kmart had ices and popcorn.
Yeah.
Really?
I don't know. That's not coming to mind.
Our third one finally, they invited Little Caesars in, so then you got a little pizza aroma in there as well. So. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I always remember Pizza Hut in Kmart's or places like that. Is that what's in Target right now?
Target
has a lot of Starbucks.
Yeah, a lot of Starbucks.
We're name dropping a lot of brands, and let me
That's
just
right.
say,
Go ahead, send the money.
We are open for sponsors. So. All right, so small town Hillsboro.
Yeah. So my small town, by the time I graduated, a few more things have popped up there or whatever. But my first job I had when I was in Hillsboro was I worked at this Italian restaurant that was there for about 3 or 4 months. Decided that was not the thing for me. They had opened up at that point they'd opened up a movie theater in our local town called Star Cinemas, and so I applied there and got a job there. Started as an usher, and they found out that I played music and was interested in videos and recording my band and knowing stuff about microphones enough to like. I was into that because I wanted to record my band and make videos and do that kind of stuff because it was the age of like MTV and all that stuff, whatever. And I grew up along to people who ended up being some pretty heavy-hitting musicians, which were inspirational to me. And so, I started a band when I was in like 7th or 8th grade, and that kind of became a driving force for my entire life. Basically, it's kind of just propelled me from one step to the next or whatever. So I got interested in microphones and recording and stuff like that. The theater that I was working for found out that I was interested in that stuff, and they're like, hey, would you want to try to maybe run film projection? I was like, oh yeah, let's do it, whatever. So at like age 16, I was a film projectionist for a movie theater and had like 6 different theaters. I was building films and all that kind of stuff at an early age. So that was my start into the theater world. But
so Star Cinemas had 6 screens?
It had 6 screens.
I also grew up in a small town. We had a theater with 1 screen. So whatever was playing was playing. And there weren't 2 offerings depending on the time. It was just 1 film for like a month, and then something else would switch out. But when you were the projectionist, still film, actual reels.
Bringing the 6 or 7 different reels that you had to splice together and put the previews on there and splice it all together. And
6 or 7 reels for 1 film?
Yeah, for 1 film. So it might have been a few more than that, but it's roughly about 7 reels, I think.
So when you're splicing it together, are you literally like taping these things together? Gluing?
Correct, yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah, some of them, they would have like leader tape on the front and the end, so you would pull it out, take the leader tape and the tail end of it off and basically splice it up. The tail of reel 1 goes to the head of reel 2, and you just keep running it all together, and then you run it onto a big platter, and then you got to test it, and then you hope that you did it right.
If you did it wrong, can you fix it, or is that just that?
If you did it wrong, then you could fix it, but it was a lot more work, because now you have to undo the film, get back to the part where you messed up, and then rebuild it. But you become pretty proficient at it pretty quickly. So,
did you ever mess up where you flipped one where there was just a section of the film that's upside down or backwards or something?
Remix. I don't remember doing anything that bad. So,
and not to jump around too much, but the projector here used to be film as well. And some people may think it still is, but it used to be actual film.
Right.
Were you doing the same thing with OmniMax films, splicing it together and things like that?
Absolutely, yeah. I working with Jim Crowell, who is our senior technical director. He hired me back here in '98, and he got me right into it, like threading film and helping him splice and stuff. And then because I was kind of proficient at that, a lot of the new people that came in too, because I had all that splicing experience and stuff too, when things went wrong, I was usually the person to jump in and save the day a lot of times or whatever. If we get messy back there and have to come home, untangle it and make sure it gets back together and stays in sync with the soundtrack and all that stuff. So, it was kind of just helping people with their blunders as well. So
you said that Jim hired you.
Yeah.
And he's been here as long as you or longer.
He's been here since 1990. When him and Mark's been here since 1990.
They've both been here since 1990. Dave Dzinski, who's kind of the head of all of the OmniMax, been here that long as well.
Yeah.
I think our OmniMax team is probably the longest tenured team in the entire museum.
That's a good point.
I think you're right.
I mean, like, as a team.
Yeah.
We have some very long tenured people in exhibits.
Yeah, we've got a good roster of long tenured people on the exhibits team, but not to the extent that the OmniMax team is. I mean, you all are like the forefathers of the museum experiences. People know it today. I mean, when you talk about childhood in Cincinnati, you're going on field trips to the museum center. I think that's a lot of times when people see their first OmniMax film is on a field trip. I think when you're in elementary school, everyone wants to run to the children's museum, but their teachers force them into history and science. Like, we're here to learn. And so then, they're going through the cave, they're going through the Ice Age gallery. And these are experiences that people like you, Jim Crawl, Marks, Dave Dzinski, Dave Might, have all put together. And so thinking of, the past 34 years of Cincinnati Museum Center in this building, and you all have kind of built that foundation for people.
Yeah.
That's wild. What an astute observation, Mitch.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, recently I kind of just been looking around being like, I got my card in the mail that says, "Oh, you've been here 26 years. Congratulations." Maybe I got a scoop of free ice cream with that. I forget. But you start looking around and you're like, wow, there's I've been here 26 years. I'm really proud that I've actually been in this job that long, and I really enjoy my work. But if you look around and you go all the people that were here 26 years ago, so many people have come through here and passed through here, and there's probably, there's only a small group of us here that have been here that long still, and it's still cool to look around and see all the new people coming in, the new generation coming through the museum, but also it's interesting to see how the turnovers happen and who's still around. But it's just kind of taking stock of that.
Well, the museum has a really long history, depending on how you want to build that legacy. I mean, the Museum of Natural History and Science goes back over 200 years. The Cincinnati History Museum, the History Library and Archives are almost 200 years old now. But the Museum Center, as a lot of people think about it now, is what exists here in Union Terminal, which goes back to 1990 when it opened.
Yeah.
So it's, on the one hand, it's kind of old for people. You think 34 years, and that's a big chunk of people's lives. People grew up coming here and now have young kids of their own, or now have teenagers or grandkids of their own. And you talking about the people who have come before you and who have come and gone, I don't think people realize that. If you're onboarding a new team member, they just look and say, "Oh, James has been here for a little while.
Yeah,
he really knows a lot," not knowing what that full tenure looks like and how much of that. I mean, 26 out of 34 years is what percent? It's got to be 75? 75%,
right.
80%?
Something like that.
How'd everyone doing math? But I mean, 75% of the museum's lifetime in this building. You've got your fingerprints all over it. I mean, literally, look at the Think of the films you've watched. Have you ever seen a fingerprint on it? That's probably James.
Right.
That is.
You ever see a hair get caught in the lens? That was probably mine.
I'm really fascinated by the operations of the OmniMax. So, in thinking of commercial theaters versus the OmniMax and thinking of those film reels, what's the size difference? Like, what are we talking about? Someone who saw a film in the 90s at their local theater versus seeing an OmniMax here, what's the film difference like?
So, if my memory serves me correctly, the 70 millimeter 15 perf format that the OmniMax uses, I believe the film frame itself was like basically, if I remember right, 6 times larger than like the standard 35 millimeter frame, meaning that you could take 6 of those 35 millimeter frames, 3 on the top and 3 on the bottom, put them next to each other, and that would kind of make the size of that frame, if I'm not mistaken. Dave Basinski will probably later correct me on that.
Kool-Aid man.
But I'm pretty sure that's, if I remember right, that's pretty close to it. But yeah, it's the largest film format frame, and the image quality and the clarity of the picture, it's just, it's unbeatable.
You talked about 6 reels for films when you were working in high school. How about OmniMax films? How many reels are those for one film?
Gosh, those, I feel like we had like 20 some reels or so. They came in on smaller size, but they were bigger, whatever. But I feel like they were worth about 20 reels or so that you would put together for that.
I remember with the projector, I mean, it's like 3-4 feet diameter reel that this film was on. So you were taking it off these smaller ones and spooling it around this big platter as you're splicing it.
And just run them all together.
So what happens if it gets tangled up or something? Like if the film gets damaged, would we get extra of those in or what?
Yeah, that's what we'd have to do. Sometimes if we were able to catch it soon enough and stop the projector and not incur a lot of damage, we would be able to, maybe if it was only 2 or 3 frames that were damaged, we would just replace those with like black frames or something like that for the meantime, because 24 frames a second, you're not going to see 2 or 3 frames go by real quick like that, whatever. But if it was like something that was significant, then we would have to pay for a whole new reel and get a new reel in and replace that out. But in the meantime, to keep the film running, you would have to put a slug in there. That's what we would call it. It's like a little spacer to keep so that also the film would stay in sync with the sound as well until you got that replacement reel.
So that part's wild to me, that I remember learning this, and it was so crazy. Someone walked me through one. It's probably you. Walked me through all the operations, that it was kind of, all right, the reel starts and you count to this number and you hit the audio, because they were completely separate pieces, separate parts of equipment that were not synced up at all.
Yeah. So back in the day, if you didn't get that right, then you had a bad martial arts movie that you could watch, or you couldn't rewind it then. Now that we're digital, it's like much easier. You can just rewind. Oh, whoops, we loaded the wrong film. It doesn't really happen that often, but it's happened probably once or twice since we've been digital, and just as easily stop and load the right one and start over. So
that happened in the past, where someone might be sitting down to watch Journey into Amazing Caves, and all of a sudden they're watching Lewis and Clark.
Yeah, exactly,
or
right.
something.
Yeah.
They're just like, what? Well, I'm strapped in.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much it. Well, you guys are here for Lewis and Clark now. You're welcome to watch Lewis and Clark, and then we'll try to get you a refund for your other film or whatever we need to do to accommodate you. But yeah, we had moments like that. And then we'd also have moments where I can remember we're like, okay, the film's on the screen, but the sound's not working. You guys, we're watching a silent Lewis and Clark now. You're welcome to stay and watch the rest of it and let it run out. But we're going to, you can come back the next hour when we'll put your right film on for you. But
say, they didn't have audio equipment with them in the 19th century.
So. Right.
Sorry. For a lot of people, this feels like ancient history. But we had film until 2019 or 2018, 2019 is when we got our first digital films in, right?
That sounds about right, yeah.
That's when we changed the projector, and that was always such a cool experience. That was part of the OmniMax, was going in the projection room is just big glass fishbowl.
Yeah.
And you can see the projector go up and down. You see this giant platter. How much did those things weigh?
They weighed about 300 pounds a piece or so.
No kidding.
And back in the day when I first started, it was just a couple people muscling it around or whatever. We didn't actually have a lift or whatever. So later down the road, we ended up getting a lift so one person could actually move them by themselves or whatever. But back in the day, it was time to change reels. We have 4 or 5 different movies playing throughout the day because we got, different school groups coming in, seeing different movies in the morning. So it was all hands on deck in the booth in between the shows, like 2 or 3 people picking it up, swapping it out, putting the next one on.
That's what I was going to ask. Was it just, this is the one film for the day? We're not moving this around every hour. So the reel runs. Does it self-rewind? How's it does it get spun on a different reel and then spun back on the other? This is something I've never thought about.
There was an evolution in that in the IMAX technology. So like when I first started, I think it was called the Mach 1 reel unit or something like that. But essentially we had to have, when I first started, you had to have 2 copies of the same film that you were playing, because while one was playing, the other one was rewinding. Then they switched over, upgraded to kind of more of a standard in 35 millimeter projection, where it was like a vertical platter system, and that type of system feeds from the center. So when it plays out, it's playing and rewinding simultaneously, basically. So at that point, we only had to have 1 copy of the print. So that saved money there and time as well. So, and you could have, with multiple decks on there, you could have 2 films loaded at once and kind of go back and forth at that point. So it's probably hard to imagine to think about, but
yeah, that's crazy. All right, so that solves the film issue. Within the sound issue, was it like a stereo? You had 2 tape decks where you had 2.
It was like that kind of, yeah. Like as I recall, there was a picture start frame at the beginning of the film. You'd get that in the aperture block, and then at that point you would have to go over and interlock your sound. So we had a 35 millimeter audio backup, and we also had like 3 different discs that had 2 tracks of sound on each of those. And you had both of those going at the same time or whatever. So if the digital failed, you could also switch back to the old 35 millimeter analog soundtrack that was interlocked with the film itself. So
the fact that any of these films went right when you
there's a lot that could go wrong. There's a lot that could go wrong. You got to be on your toes and pay attention to details for sure.
So with our digital system, is it kind of like all in one, just like it comes on a hard drive, the sound is connected to the video, and you just hit play?
Correct, yeah. So all those headaches that we used to have and all those things that could go wrong have decreased and made us more efficient. So
I've heard Dave Dazinski speak about this at length, that there are advantages and disadvantages to film and to digital.
Yeah.
Have you seen any difference? Like, do you get nostalgic for film just because of how it looks different? Are there areas where digital is just not as good on the screen as film used to be?
I think it's a little bit of a personal preference kind of thing for a lot of people, but for me, I kind of miss the way film looks. It just seemed to have like a more natural character to it a little bit for me, but I've warmed up to the digital a lot too, and it looks, it looks phenomenal. It looks great, and it definitely makes things more efficient to run and save some time here and there. So
IMAX was working to make OmniMax digital, but the challenge is spreading that across the curved screen without giving everyone really big foreheads or distorting stuff.
Yeah.
And so that was a little bit of a learning curve, OmniMax screen pun intended. And when we were doing the restoration of Union Terminal from 2016 to 2018, nothing was really being done to the theater. It was just kind of sequestered by itself. So we were able to be a testing theater for different IMAX digital technology, right?
Yeah, correct.
So they took out our film projector, put in a digital one.
Yeah.
And brought OmniMax executives in theaters from across the country here, because we had a theater that would allow them the time to uninstall and install a new projector.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts when you first saw it? I mean, did you get to see any of the learning curves, kind of the hiccups as they were getting to what we have today?
I was there for some of the testing. It's been a minute since that happened, so it's a little fuzzy and all that stuff. But we played some content on the screen. I don't necessarily remember looking at it and being like, no, that's like doesn't compare to film or anything like that or whatever. It seemed like I was already kind of pretty close to looking pretty good right out the gate, whatever. But yeah, I don't really remember having like a strong reaction to that looked so much better than film, or film was having us being like, no, I want my film back,
What's always fun about that is they installed the digital projector, And we're kind of like, oh, that looks great. Yeah, let's do that. And they go, great. Well, we have to take it back down. It's not yours.
Right.
So they had to uninstall it because we weren't sold. It wasn't like, it's not like getting a new TV at home where you're like, that looks good, and you throw the other one out and you know that this is it. You still have the film projector sitting nearby because if anything went wrong, that's what was going back. And again, for people who think that this is so long ago, if you saw National Parks Adventure, which is one of our last films before we did the restoration of the building, that was film. Like that was in Mitch. You have I think you have a film strip from that film.
This one I think is an ocean film.
Journey to the South Pacific.
I think it might be Journey to the South Pacific. If I hold this up, we can kind of see some fish swimming around there.
Oh, that's cool. Ooh, what about the light tunnel? Is that its own strip of film?
Yeah,
that was pasted into every reel that came in?
That's true. Yeah, we had I think I don't know if we played that in other theaters or not. I was kind of under the impression that was like a proprietary thing that they created for our theater, but I suppose they probably had it in other ones as well. But yeah, it was a separate thing, so we had to have that. Had a Robert D. Leonard family OMNIMAX theater like slug on the end of it or whatever. So it was so I mean, and that piece of film was created custom for our theater because it had our branding on it or whatever. So we have to have one of those for every film that we were putting on. So yeah, we had to splice that on every beginning of every film.
Was it the same one that you're splicing over and over, or did you just have a drawer of them? Grab another one and put that on there.
We had a few, whatever, and then after so many passes on them, they did take their toll, and then it started to degrade, and you'd have to like replace them. But you could get several thousand passes on them. I'm sure I forget, but we ran them a lot.
Man, that's wild.
Yeah.
Do you know how many films you've been part of here?
That's a good question. I mean, if you think about like we probably did like 5 or 6 main features a year. I don't know. It's for 26 years, so
over 100 for
probably
sure.
100 movies. I've moved them all down to the stairs or whatever, and I know there's a film library in our building. Like that if we ever wanted to like go film again or have a space to hook it up, we still have the old projector and a lot of the old films and stuff too. We probably have a library of 60 prints sitting down there or something. I mean, we still have that stuff.
That's why.
Do you have any favorites from your time?
Years ago, Everest was like my favorite when I was younger. Like that movie was really great to me. But as I got older, like the death toll and all that kind of stuff into, I just became more of a sentimental person as I got older. And I was like, I can't watch this anymore, kind of thing. But Shackleton's Antarctic Adventure, I don't think people would say like it's really like not like it's not doesn't really utilize the format of IMAX, but the story itself is so compelling and amazing that like. I like to watch that. It's a lot of Ken Burns style, like photography, zooming in and out, or whatever on pictures or whatever. But like, I like Shackleton's Antarctic Adventure, even though it doesn't like have any people flying in wingsuits or anything like that. It's still a really good film. Like so it just proves that format itself, like it just makes things. It's just an awesome format. Yeah. We've seen a lot of them.
Do you have any that you wanna call out as not a favorite?
Well, actually, I mean, you brought up National Parks Adventure a minute ago. That actually is like probably one of the best ones. Like that film is fantastic. Like I also like Backyard Wilderness a lot, just because it's kind of like my home. Actually, it's kind of like I like to be outside in nature and at night. I just put my tent up last night. I was like, oh, it's fall times here. It's time for the tent.
Oh yeah, the weather's beautiful.
Yeah. Get the kid out in the tent and play around a little bit, but. As far as like films I have not really liked, there was one a long time ago that was called it was about the human body, but it was more of like a PBS kind of thing where like you got to go inside you would eat food and you would see them people eat and you actually go inside the body and see it all get digested and stuff like that or whatever. But that one was not a favorite.
Do you ever burn out? I mean, you see these things.
Oh,
you
yeah.
see the same film.
This is a good point.
4 or 5 times a day, right?
Right. We can see this film like we take turns now watching the films or whatever. But yeah, you see those films. A staff person can see those films, and during their run, they might see it 80, 100 times. You know what I mean? Or but so after a while, it does get kind of monotonous for sure. But you also, you learn a lot.
My experience was not that extreme. I just remember when I first started was the first year we had Rocky Mountain Express. And I was working in Holiday Junction, and there was a trailer for it, and that trailer had the music, but you just hear the same, like 2 to 3 minutes over and over.
Yeah.
And someone's like, "Oh, have you seen the full film?" I was like, I don't know that I can take 40 minutes of this music. And the film's really great.
Yeah, it is. The photography in that one is amazing. Like,
it is.
Stephen Lowe.
Yeah, the cinematography in that, I think it holds up. So a lot of the OmniMax films, they do. But that one is pretty spectacular. And Dave has talked about the way that drones have revolutionized OmniMax films and where you can go and how close you can get to animals and all this other stuff. And it was wild because he was saying, all right, watch this shot. So the way you do this shot is a helicopter flies overhead and then it turns like on a level plane, and now it's flying backwards as the train's coming to you, and you can see the grass like flying up. And I was like, awesome.
Yeah.
It's like pseudo director commentary.
Yeah, that one's really good.
All right, so let's back up. You said you've been in bands since 7th grade, 8th grade?
Yeah, since about 7th grade, I started playing music. Yeah.
What kind of instruments?
My main instrument is guitar. I play bass a little bit. I've got an upright bass. I've started kind of getting into drums a little bit in my later years, but it was always mainly just guitar. That was my main instrument. So,
what kind of music do you play?
It's all a bit like punk music, hardcore, some a little bit at times, but I've also done some other things, some bluegrass and that. But mainly, I've inspired by like underground, hardcore, punk type music. So,
I mean, that's if you're talking early mid '90s, right? That's
the
heart of it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I grew up during the grunge era or whatever. You know, everybody was into Nirvana and all that stuff, and then there was all kinds of other bands that Nirvana was into that weren't popular. Then you just kind of dig, and you end up getting into all kinds of other really cool music. You know, that not everybody's into. But
how many other people did you have in your band? And like, how long did you stick together? What was that like?
I had a band in high school. We formed in like 9th grade, and we stuck together all the way through high school. And a couple of my bandmates actually moved down to Cincinnati a year prior to me. They were a grade ahead of me, and so when I graduated high school, I was like, well, I'm gonna follow them, whatever, and do a similar thing, whatever. They went to electronic media, or at least one of them went to electronic media program at CCM. So I was like, I'm gonna do the same thing, or whatever. And I was like, I'm going to go there and learn how to make videos, you know, be a musician. I'm going to learn how to make videos. I'm going to learn how to record my band better, that kind of stuff. So that was the only thing that I was really super into and interested in at that time. And so I started applying to the school. I talked to my counselor at high school. He didn't think I was going to ever get in. He's like, you don't know, this kid doesn't apply himself in high school. How could he do? But I'm like, guess what? Like, at that point in high school, I had a multi-track recorder, and I was already like recording my own band and stuff. So when I went for my interview and stuff, I had demos and stuff. And I'm like I already know how to record bands, basics, and and stuff like that. I'm here to learn more and get better at this stuff. And my dad tried to talk me out of going to the school because he asked him and he was smart. He said, "How much money are you going to make when you get out of here?" And he tried to talk me out of it, and I was like, "Yeah, you're not going to make that much money, and working in this field, and you're going to have to it's just not going to be lucrative. You're going to have to pay so much money and to go to school, and then at the end of the day, it's probably not worth it. You already kind of know what you're doing and what but." And he was right, But at the same time, I gained valuable experience there. Got to, meet some more people, and it opened up avenues that I would have normally, if I'd have stayed in my small town, I'd have never branched out. I'd have never blossomed into where I'm at now. So, yeah, when I had my interview for school and stuff, though, they were just like, okay, like, I got accepted. They're like, all right, he's into this. He's put the effort in already. He's already trying to do his thing. So it was kind of interesting to go back to school and see the counselor's face and be like, "Oh, you got in." You're like, well, yeah.
I love stories of really unsupportive guidance counselors
or
teachers. Like, what teacher?
Yeah.
Like, what teacher's telling a kid, like, don't even try. It's not. That's not.
I went to CCM, and you're never going to get in. Yeah, right. Okay, whatever.
Oh, man.
I'm not going to let that get me down. But
hey, I hate to ask this, but can you come speak to the class? They would really... They could really benefit to hear from you. Like, oh, who needs me now?
Yeah.
So, are you in a band now?
I'm still in a band, yeah.
Okay.
The band that I'm in now is like an experimental punk type band. Like we play punk music, but we also take it off into other experimental jazzy type levels and stuff like that. We get weird with it, and bring it back, and just trying to step outside the norm or whatever and do something different with the music. The band that I play in now is called, you're going to love this. My mom, I'm sure, loves it too. The band that I'm in now is called Perfect Stranglers. And this is the first band that I've formed where I was kind of challenged to write songs. Like, in the past, all the bands I've been in, a lot of the work has been, the songs have been created collaboratively. With this particular band, somebody had to write songs. Like me and the drummer got together a few times or whatever, and it was just like, okay, I have to write songs. Like, we're not writing them together. So I don't know. I just started writing a bunch of songs. I got inspired, and at this point for this new band, I've already written like 16 songs.
Really?
Which I've amazed myself in doing. Like, I was like, I don't even know where these songs are coming from or how I'm doing this. It just kind of channeling this creative idea and spirit. It's and it's flowing and it's great. And I found a couple great people to play with, actually, and they grew up. The drummer grew up like just 20 miles down the road from me, and he grew up in a small town too, in Blanchester, where we both have a lot in common, like growing up in small, like, country towns, and both moved away from our small country towns to have more opportunities to play music and do things like that as well. But yeah, I play in a band called Perfect Stranglers.
Based on the show?
Well, yeah. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, like it was. I was like, oh, you can just put one letter in there, and that really changes that. Yeah, I don't know. I really enjoy playing music. It's just a great creative outlet, and you can just kind of get lost and have fun. So,
how long does it take you to write a song?
It varies. Like, sometimes it's one of those things where it seems to just come out of the sky from nowhere, and it just flows, and there it is, and it's alive in a matter of 10 minutes. You're just like, there it is. And then sometimes my phone is full of just like me walking around, but like, like, like saying different things that come to my head, or different vocal or lyrical ideas, whatever. And then, like, at some point you go back through, and these little earworms that you've created for yourself, and these little memos you put on your phone, you play them back, and then things start to kind of coalesce and come together. And, so it varies. It's part of the fun.
I'm not musically inclined at all, so I always have to take a step back and remember, like I did just now, that it's when you write a song, it's not just lyrics, which is maybe depending on what your skill set is, maybe that's the easy part, and the music itself is the hard part, because you can, song lyrics, they kind of become poetry,
right?
And it's sort of easy to get the cadence and make stuff rhyme, and kind of do that. But then, how do you set that to music? And the music changes drastically how someone takes that in.
Yeah.
So to me, you're blending two very distinct skill sets, and one is what you want people to hear, but then also how they hear it, and that defines it, which is just wild.
Yeah.
Do you ever write a song, you're like, man, that's good, it's gonna drive me nuts to have to play that one? Like there has to be a band that everyone's like, play this song. Like, I hate that song.
Yeah, it's like Nirvana's like, I gotta play Teen Spirit again, dang. But no, I mean, the band that I'm in now, I really love what we're doing. I don't get tired of playing any of the songs that we have right now. We're getting ready to put our first record out too. So I mean, the band's been playing together for about 2 years now at this point, just kind of putting our stuff together. Hopefully, we're gonna start playing out more eventually, but right now it's we're just trying to get that first record out, which is probably going to be out on a local record label called Freight Tree Records this coming spring, is the idea. So we've self-recorded the entire record. My friend Shane engineered the record for us. He and I are two best friends. We've grown up playing music together since we were in high school. He was in a different band when I was in high school, and we kind of met up, and formed a band together in high school, and we've always just played music together and gone to see shows and just been best friends. And and for this record, he recorded this record for us. We all got together over a winter and slowly worked on recording 8 different songs. And then the packaging actually for it is something that I'm creating. I do screen printing as well, and I have kind of created a little business called Print, Drop, and Roll, which I don't really go out looking for business or whatever, but I have friends who, it's like the guy who, I need to move, and I got a friend who's got a truck or whatever, wants you to come help me move or whatever. So I kind of like run my screen printing like that. I'm a musician. I know other friends who are in bands. So I'm like, hey, I need a t-shirt for my band, or I need a record sleeve for my band, or whatever. So I just kind of work on that kind of scale. I had aspirations to like take it a lot farther than that, but then, about 5 years ago, I had a child, and life just changes. So, but also the heavy workload that it takes to produce some of these things or whatever, screen printing wise and stuff too, all the manual work, like I'm glad things are where they're at. Like they're on a scalable version where I can enjoy my work and stuff. So right now, like I'm using those talents to create a record sleeve for our first band or whatever, and it's my first like gatefold record sleeve, and on the gatefold record sleeve it has a pop-up panel on the inside of it as well that's got screen printing on both sides of it. So it's like this is something I've been working on since like last November. So my kid goes to school and I got 2 hours to screen print. I'm like, oh, I'm doing some stuff here, and you do just a little bit here and there to where it doesn't drive you crazy. Like it does drive you. You just get to the point where you're like, oh gosh, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. This is a lot of work. You know what I mean? But I enjoy it, and I'm making the piece of art that I want to make. I'm onto the back cover of the sleeve now, and then after that I got the CDs to do as well. But it's going to be like, it's a long process, but I'm able to create the thing that I want to create and release it and share it with my friends and see what kind of reactions it gets. You know what I mean? So.
Did you design it as well?
Yeah, I designed it as well, and I have like die cutters and stuff. So like I've designed custom dies to create the gatefold record sleeves and all the other like CD packaging and stuff that I make. So it's basically I start with a flat sheet of paper. Design it, screen print it, make all the screens, screen print the image onto the paper, and then I put it in a die cutter and roll it through. It cuts it out, puts all the cuts and creases and everything I need in it, and then I fold it all up and tape it together and package it. So it's like every little step.
Being creative is one thing, but then having the technical skills and expertise to do something with it is insane.
Yeah.
You also were responsible for creating the Union Terminal hats, right? That's a screen printed thing that you've done?
Exactly, yeah. A lot of those were screen printed as well, and that's actually how I got into screen printing. That was the whole thing that even got me down that avenue of my life, whatever. Like there was a day where I was out front of the museum center. I don't know what year that was, probably 10 years ago at this point, maybe 12 years ago at this point. And there was a sign out there that had a picture of Union Terminal, and I was just sitting out there in between shows, and I was like, that'd be cool if it was like made into like a hat, kind of like the Long John Silver's kids' hats or whatever. It'd be kind of cool to that. And I shared the idea with like a coworker, and she was like, "Dude, do it," So I literally took that like sign out of the sign stand. I took it up to the office, and I like photocopied it in like 2 sections and like taped it together and made my first one. And just kind of put it up to my head. I'm like, all right. Yeah, this is going to work, right? But I had no idea. I had zero idea on how to actually make it happen. I knew I had a good idea. I didn't know what I was going to do, but it was like, it took a lot of work just to create that first one. I mean, I was out taking a walk one morning. I saw like an industrial arts building that said like, we can cut metal for you. I thought I was going to be able to like hand cut all these things. I went and got a metal template made. They cut it out. And so I would get paper at home, screen printing on it. And then I would lay that template on there and like take an X-Acto knife and cut all around it and like that. And I was making the first ones that way. And I'm like, how do I, like, this is just not practical, Like, so I had to teach myself how to screen print, all that stuff. I had to teach myself Adobe Illustrator to learn how to and Photoshop to learn how to design stuff. In the initial phases of that, like, I had some talented people around me helping me out with that stuff. And I'm just like, I can't rely on everybody to do this for me all the time. I got to be able to do this myself. So started teaching myself those programs. And hand built a lot of like my equipment at first or whatever with the help from Jim Crow. Even he has a woodworking shop at his house, so he's also a crafty person as well. So he would help me with like build some of the equipment that I needed to do it. It's over the time I would eventually upgrade a lot of stuff, but like yeah, I eventually got some die cutter machines. I found out that companies that I could like design custom dies. So I got a custom die made that would make the hats for me. And so then it was a matter of just like being able to screen print them in mass or whatever, which is still a hefty load of work to do. It's all manual printing. But then you would just be able to lay it on the machine and then just roll it through and it'd cut it out, put the perfs in it for you, everything, and you could open it up and adjust it and any size head, basically. So then once I did that, I remember showing it to Dave and Elizabeth and them being like, their eyes were just like, wow, that's a great idea. They were super into it right away, you know? But I was like, well, how's this going to... how am I going to incorporate this? How am I going to do this? Like, I mean, my whole idea was like, I want to make this hat, be able to put it on kids' head, and then maybe years from now, my family will come in and see that this still exists, kind of thing. Making art, making some kind of change in the world, just. But yeah, I don't know. So I made these hats. I participated in the first Maker Fair that they had, Cincinnati Maker Fair down at Washington Park. And that went really well. So kids would I had a bunch of other uni-terminal screen printed things that I'd made. And kids would come up and they would pick out their hat and we put it on the die cutter and they'd cut it out themselves and put it on their head and they would just love it or whatever. And then from the first handful of events like that I did or whatever, I did some other like crafty fairs and some other maker fairs. Some of the proceeds that I received from doing that, I actually donated a portion back to the restoration of the building. Prior to the restoration, I knew that it was down the road or whatever, but I was donating. It wasn't insignificant. Maybe they bought a couple boxes of screws, but like I still made the effort anyway to like try to give back to the museum, which was kind of the whole point of it anyway, is to try to make a difference here and do something above and beyond the scope of my normal work duties, just to say, hey, I can do more. You know what I mean? So. But it ended up a few years later, like they had maker fairs every year, and sometimes they were hosted out at the fairgrounds when the building was closed down. But I think when we came back into the year after we came back into the building, I actually was surprised that year that somebody came up and handed me a trophy at the end of the event for most innovative product. So
very cool.
It was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I wanted to make something, so I taught myself how to do it. As long as you got the ambition and the motivation, you can teach yourself anything. Pretty much like that's how I feel about it.
I'm curious about what you can't do. We'd asked you, and we'd sent like a box of the crown jewels, right?
Yeah, crown jewels. That's what I called it, crown jewels.
So it's Union Terminal silhouette, but they were Bengal striped.
Yeah.
Sent it out to L.A. for the Super Bowl when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
There was a Cincinnati organization that was doing all the Cincinnati PR out there, and we gave them this box to take with them. So part of the media village in L.A. when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl were your
crown jewel
Bengal-fied Union Terminal crown jewels.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's so
I forgot
cool
about that. Yeah, but just making the effort, like all these other little things popped up just from doing that one, taking the initiative to do that one project or whatever. I've made different themed ones, whatever, ones that look like R2-D2.
I've got one of those up here in my office.
Yeah, so I've got a bunch of different ones that I've made for different events around the museum to kind of promote things, and I don't know, it's just a fun, engaging way to engage with the crowd and stuff, whatever. And kids come up and they're like, "Oh, nice hat." I didn't wear it every day because kids just be asking all day long, "Where can I get that hat?" You know what I mean? and sometimes it's fun. I still have a bunch of them at home that I figure one of these days I'll whenever I'm feeling like it, we'll just set it up and just give them away or whatever, But yeah, I don't know, just taking the initiative to do that, it also opened up all these other avenues where we're now making record sleeves for bands and stuff like that. Somewhere, I've done a bunch of other projects. In between the other project that I got involved in with the screen printing and stuff and the die cutting was that Mark Mothersbaugh of Devo, he had an exhibit down at the CAC a handful of years back or whatever, and I got commissioned to recreate his iconic eyeglasses, because he has an eyeglass company called I can't remember the eyeglass company, but his name of his glasses were Akronites, because he's from Akron himself, and so he has a couple of pairs of eyeglasses that he sells that you can get and get your prescription put in. But he, his iconic glasses, they asked me to recreate his iconic Akronite glasses in a paper format or whatever, so I recreated the glasses. They were given out at the CAC for his exhibit, and then also when he came and performed at downtown at the Woodward Theater, they were also given out to everybody standing in line as they were getting to the door. So it's it's those moments where you get to see like where your work pays off, and you're like, oh man, like that's so cool. I got to be involved in that. You know what I mean? Like,
that's amazing. I didn't know that. Mark Mothersbaugh, also the theme. I think all the music for Rugrats.
Yeah,
for
Rugrats,
those who grew up.
Pee-wee's Playhouse, like tons of things. You know, like
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. More recently, yeah,
yeah.
I think he did Thor Ragnarok. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Man, that's wild. And you're just making his glasses.
Yeah.
For the world to enjoy. That's crazy.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
If we did a talent show, a staff talent show here, which of all of your talents would you enter into the talent show?
Gosh. I mean my love is just my main love is playing music, whatever. So I think I would play music, but at the same time, like probably the one that would probably go over more well with everybody, the crowd more pleasing would be the quieter thing that I do for the museum. And make hats.
We've learned of a lot of different musicians on staff.
We have.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, we're getting pretty close to having a self-contained battle of the bands.
Oh yeah.
Staff only.
We just need to teach Elizabeth the trumpet and Dave, and we could all just have like an after hours after work jam.
All right, a lot of music talk, a lot of film talk, and you talked about like making videos for your band. Mitch, you know where I'm going to go with this? My favorite thing about music videos and people directing them is that Michael Bay got his start making music videos.
I should have known.
Including which Meatloaf video? He did one of Meatloaf's like iconic music videos. That was his start.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Anytime we can drop Michael Bay in this, we try to. By that I mean me.
You sprinkle the Old Bay on it, huh?
Some Bay seasoning.
If you had to pick a walk-up song for yourself, like baseball players have their walk-up songs, what would your walk-up song be?
Wow. Probably Fugazi's Waiting Room.
Really?
Yeah. You're like,
I'm gonna look it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have been savvy. I'm like, oh, I would do one of my own songs and kind of self-promote. But can we do that? So anyone who's seen an OMNIMAX film, before the film, one of the staff comes to the front and grabs the microphone and kind of gives you the rundown of the rules. What if you all have your own walk-up music to that?
I like it. Come out like for the dinosaur movie, like everybody walk that dinosaur.
Exactly.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I'm down. Right. Yeah.
If you come to an OmniMax film and that's happening, it started here. This is the brain trust that came up with that.
All right.
And the question I ask everyone: if you could trade roles with one person in the museum for a day, who would it be?
Wow. I'm probably David Might, actually. I like his talent and the work that he does is just impressive. Of course, they'd be like, the next day, like, can I get David back in here, please? The spider today got a mustache. James gave the spider a mustache. Or the raccoon. Yeah. But yeah. I don't know. His talent impresses me a lot, and I love to see all the creative works that he produces and the taxidermy. I mean, it's just his desk is like sits diagonally across from me or whatever, so I get to see kind of the stuff that he's working on, every now and then, and yeah.
That makes sense because it combines all of your tactile work, your hands-on creativity work, and your love of the outdoors, and that's kind of where Dave lives.
Yeah.
Oh, I do want to know, because you give this, you give the instructions before the OmniMax film, but before people even walk in and pick their seat, what are your kind of top 3 tips for watching an OmniMax film to get the most out of it?
Gotcha. What we tell our guests is, if you want to get the most immersive experience out of it, the ideal place to sit in the theater is close to center as possible, dead center. Inside the theater, there's a gray box that we call it our doghouse, which is where the projector lens pops out at. And the film is projected from. And that's pretty much kind of like in the center of the theater there. So we kind of tell folks to sit around that box, or up a little bit higher, about halfway up or 75% up. If a person is susceptible to motion sickness and that kind of situation, we recommend to them that they sit all the way at the very top of the theater. The ideal being that you're not as immersed in the curvature of the bowl, and it gives you kind of more of a flatter looking image sitting at the top. But yeah, if you want the immersive full-on experience, try to sit towards the middle because you're equally surrounded by the sound and the picture. So that's where you're going to really feel that motion. So,
and hopefully when people watch a film, they understand the work that goes into it, not just in the filmmaking, but to give you that experience in our theater. Because I know a little bit about a lot of stuff here, but I did not know all of that about the OMNIMAX theater, so that is wild.
Yeah. It's really fun to see people like show up excited for the films, and then just hear what, as they're like exiting the theater, the kind of things that they're like, their minds are thinking about now about the film, and the films all have like a lot of them have like a good message in it or whatever, for creating a better world or educating you on something. So it's interesting to hear people's kind of like their brains like opening up and thinking about the things that they just saw as they're leaving and they're discussing and stuff. It's really cool.
We get a lot of school groups that come in, and that's a lot of kids' introduction to them, because I think for parents they try to figure out like, all right, what's the right age to put them in the theater. But then you see it on a field trip, and you may not come back again until your kid is then old enough to see it. So it's a lot of fun when people come in and they make the decision on their own to see an OMNIMAX, whether they're in high school or they're in college or just out of college. People in their 20s being like, you know what? It's been a while since I've seen an OMNIMAX film. Like, oh my God, I forgot how awesome this is. It is one of those things that just holds up so well. And I think you could put any film we've ever shown and just like throw that in there, and they're timeless because the experience is so overwhelming.
Yeah. I was just sitting there thinking, having this thought too. It's like, okay, what if, say, Blue Whales or National Parks Adventure was just playing in a normal theater, a 35 millimeter, or what's digital now, but like just a standard conventional cinema or whatever, would it be as popular? Would people still go see that? To me, I think it's a lot of it. It's not just the film production, but it's the curvature, it's the experience of that unique theater, that you just can't get anywhere else. You know what I mean? I think if you went and played Blue Whales over at AMC or whatever, I don't think it would. You know what I mean?
I have Humpback Whales. We had it a few years ago. I have it on 4K at home.
Yeah.
But if it was showing here, I would still come watch it here.
Yeah. So, let's see.
I think that. Yeah, the theater, to me, I think the theater is the draw, and the film is icing on the cake. I mean,
yeah. That's a good way to put it.
If you, you want to see an OMNIMAX film, and if you just happen to love the ocean or whales and that's playing, that's icing on the cake. But you're not going to see a film and be like, that was just okay, because the theater experience is so incredible.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Well, James Burns, the pride of Hillsboro, Ohio, thank you for joining us. That's your official title, right? It's been a while since I've been to or through Hillsboro, but there is a sign there that says home of James Burns.
Yeah. Actually, I think it's like, this is where Prohibition started. So I was not a part of that.
Hillsboro does not know how to party.
Yes, yeah.
Thanks for joining us, James, and thank you all for listening to Meanwhile at the Museum. Remember, if you liked what you heard, please rate and subscribe, but more importantly, come see for yourself. Visit cincymuseum.org to see the latest reasons to visit. If you have any questions, comments, or just want to tell us how much you love the show, send us an email at meanwhile@cincymuseum.org. Thanks for listening.